Tonight, a special election in Westchester that has special significance for the entire state. Democrat Shelley Mayer and Republican Killian, they are vying for a state Senate seat vacated by now County Exec George Latimer. And this one has it all: big money, attack ads, and high stakes. Then there are many sides to the gun debate, but everyone agrees we need to keep guns out of the hands of crazy people. So why is it so hard to do just that? Then a rare moment of bipartisanship in D.C. A Democrat helping a Republican, and it turns into a love fest. We'll explain. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL on this special election night. I'm Richard French, and thank you for spending part of your Tuesday night with us. Well, the polls in New York close, well, in less than 3 hours, and we are keeping a close eye on the special election for the 37th District State Senate seat. Democrat Shelley Mayer, she's running against Republican Killian. Now, they're battling to win the seat that is vacated by George Latimer, that when he became the county executive of Westchester. We've been following this race since the very beginning, and it has been, to put it politely, a testy one. More than $3.5 million for a state Senate seat have been spent here, making it one of the most expensive such races in state history. A lot of money going specifically into attack ads. Outside money supporting Killian paid for ads trying to link Mayer to other Democrats who faced corruption charges and got into all sorts of other trouble. Killian's campaign releasing ads trying to paint Mayer as part of Albany's culture of corruption, even though Killian admitted in our debate that Andrew hosted she had no evidence of Mayer engaging in any wrongdoing herself. Mayer supporters, they're trying to connect Killian to both Donald Trump and the NRA. State Democratic Committee sent out mailers all but saying Killian is affiliated with the National Rifle Association. And Mayer's campaign turned a spot implying that Killian's campaign was directly funded by the pro-gun group, even though it in fact is not. Now, those ads were one of the topics that came up in our Files One debate that Andrew hosted last week.
The tone of this campaign has been incredibly harsh and personal, and frankly, driven by what I perceive as the sort of the Trump style of politics at our local level. I think the attack on corruption, as opposed to, which is a personal attack, as opposed to my vote on bills, my positions, how I've dealt with constituents, is completely unacceptable.
The only thing we have talked about is Shelley's record. And if she believes that her record is negative, then that's not her issue. The personal attacks have been against me. We have never attacked her personally. It's only on her record. But instead, I have been linked to Donald Trump, who I've never met. It's been said that I'm funded by the NRA directly. I have never been funded by the NRA directly or indirectly.
Well, we also caught up with each of the candidates today on Election Day, and they're both, as you'd expect, optimistic.
I'm very excited. I'm very optimistic. I was out at 2 train stations this morning, and I'm hopeful that the voters will make what I believe is the best choice for this district. I'm very hopeful that a Democratic majority means better things for actual New Yorkers and will keep New York a Democratic state.
I'm hearing a lot of good feedback, and a lot of I voted for you or I'm voting for you later, and I think people have been really receptive to my message. I believe in balance in government, so I'm hoping I get up there and we have a Republican Senate.
Now, they both alluded to how important this race is, as it was thought the race could determine which party controls the Senate. Now, after the Democratic reunion with that breakaway group of independent Democrats, the IDC, there's now 31 Republican members, 29 Democrats. If both Democrats on the ballot win today, and the one in the Bronx is expected to be a shoo-in, both parties would have 31 members, with the deciding vote becoming the always mercurial Brooklyn Simca Felder, a Democrat who right now caucuses with Republicans. Try and figure that one out. But now we know this race will not determine the balance of power in the state Senate. Republicans will remain in control. This after Felder announced this afternoon he'd continue to caucus with the GOP regardless of today's election results. Let's bring in our panel. Scott Vanderhoff, Republican Rockland County Executive for 5 terms now. He's co-chairman of the Palisades Institute of Dominican College. Richard St. Paul, Republican strategist and former vice chair for the National Black Republican Association. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent, and he'll be part of this evening's special coverage of that special election on Files One Hudson Valley. And as we said, polls close in less than 3 hours' time. numbers, Andrew? There really wasn't any polling in this, although internally they all, of course, said the numbers were great. What are we expecting?
We really don't know. I mean, it's going to depend on turnout. You would think the larger the turnout, the better it would be for the Democratic candidate, Shelley Mayer, just because the Democratic base has been so energized, both here in Westchester, across New York, and across the country, as we've seen in a number of races throughout the remainder or throughout the balance of this year. So the more people who wind up turning out, the better you would expect it would be for Shelley Mayer.
And Republicans, I know everyone plays the expectation game. That said, though, it would be an upset if they won, given registration numbers and the political tides of 2018.
And that Killian lost to Latimer 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago.
Well, look, this is obviously a toss-up. I mean, this district was designed to be actually a competitive district. George Latimer, it was held by a Democrat. However, the previous race with can't think of his name now, Joe. Ran for state senate against Latimer. That was a pretty close election, and I should know his name. I think it was within 5 points, and he got involved. The Republican candidate got involved in the campaign late. So you have a competitive district, but to Andrew's point, you do have a district, and you do have a base that is motivated, and predominantly because of Trump. And we saw what happened in the county exec race, where we expected the incumbent to win or to be very close, and it ended up being a 13-point victory for Latimer. So, this is we don't know what's going to happen.
But, Scott, $3.5 million spent in a state Senate race? I mean, we have congressional races around this country where they spend half that much. I mean, my God.
No, really. What
Would you ever believe if I told you had a state Senate race and they spent $3.5 million?
No,
right.
No, I wouldn't. And you think of all the things that we could buy with that. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Now you know this is a retired politician. Yeah,
that's a lot of money. But it really comes down to turnout, as you know. If they've motivated the base on either side, that's going to decide this with all the advertising, because they draw even there. Basically in terms of the ads and the expenditures. I'm told internal polls call it really close and has been close. So it actually, who is going to show up at the polling booths? That's going to make the big difference, and it could be a couple of points.
But I'd have to put the Democrat Shelley Mayer as a bit of a favorite. I mean, we don't know, and we're all sort of reading tea leaves here. But again, looking at the history in this district from 2 years ago when Killian was on the ballot against Latimer, and looking at the results we've seen for Democrats and turnout for Democrats in the last year or so, or really just in the last 6 months, you would have to figure that the Democrat mayor is a somewhat of a favorite.
And I think
here.
Killian's done a good job of creating name recognition in a short window of time in an off, election, in terms of with a special date and all that attached. But I think there's a converse, which is it's motivated people to come out, given how nasty this thing has gotten. I think we'll have higher turnout. But I have a broader question. The idea that Simca Felder, we're always going to have this IDC stuff. Again, I'm Pollyannish maybe a little to this, but this is not good government, which is pick a party, you run, and you ask your constituents to vote for it. Basically, you're vote shopping here. You don't want to sit in the back row anymore. You want to have a front seat, or in his case, he wants to make sure that yeshivas, that he gets a special carve out for him, and he held the budget process up for it. This is not a way to run, a local government, let alone state government.
Well, it's not healthy. I mean, it's just not healthy.
It's disingenuous, I think, also to the electorate.
Yeah, and yes, he has conservative views that may be more aligned with the Republican majority. Well, then become a Republican. Right. And tell people what it is you're going to do.
And by the way, I had the biggest problem. Jeff Klein, how many times did he pull this routine? Well, I'm a Democrat on election day, but now I'm going to caucus over here. Well, who's giving me the better deal? Now, all of a sudden, because I might get primary, I'm going to come back and be a Democrat this time. You want to bet good money he's not going to switch again?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, but how about the others as well?
Right, exactly.
So IDC is still spending money in the campaign, right? They're still doing all of that. They're still getting together. So the question, in a sense, Felder is the only guy who is really an IDC. He's just saying, I'm not going to join anybody.
At least he's up front,
I think Felder's decision and his announcement today and the timing of the announcement tells you a lot both about him and where the impetus in this race is, because Felder waited until the middle of Election Day to announce he was going to stay with the Republicans. One of the key platforms for Killian and for the Republican supporters was, we need to elect her so that we don't have a unified Democratic government, so that it's not the state Senate and the Assembly and the governor who are all Democratic and of the same
You
party.
have to be a really informed voter here to process that
But that's
on
been a
election
big
day.
theme, and you're still seeing that theme in ads and online as you're looking today, where it's, even the group, the charter school group that was pumped a lot of negative ads against Shelley Mayer was New Yorkers for a Balanced Albany, because they're trying to give the impression we're looking for bipartisan government in Albany. Felder's announcement today gives you an idea that A, he was never really going to switch, and B, he couched his announcement until the votes were already being cast because he didn't want to drain votes away from Killian, because her supporters, without that balance being up for grabs, might not have turned out.
But see, all of this heightens the issue of the November elections. We understand, because all of this comes to, including Felder, and his, because he said it's just for this session.
Right.
It's not going to be. It may not be forever.
Right.
So all of this then becomes, food into this enormous what's going to happen in November with respect to the elections for all the senators, and whether in fact Democrats can take over or not, legitimately.
And as for Felder's party affiliation, not to dominate, but it's a very Hasidic district in Brooklyn. He cannot win as a Republican. Republicans do not win in that district. So he may be conservative, he may be better oriented to fit with the Republican Party, but if he's got an R by his name as he goes to with his name on the ballot, he probably doesn't win. So that.
Yeah. Well, two thoughts. This balance of power and making deals with Republicans and Democrats has been happening since 2010, when you had
Pedro Espada and all the other folks. Yeah.
Say his name. God. No. So you've had this play going on since then, but more importantly, it's really boils down to really how the governor feels, and I think that the governor who has ambitions to run for president can't move into the presidency with an imbalance in his Democratic Party, and so the IDC had to thereby join back with the Democrats. Now, whether or not one member
By
of
the
the
way,
Democratic
I think
Party,
he liked it. I said it before. I think the governor, more than anybody, loved the IDC in years past.
Absolutely.
He got to have a fiscally conservative state, all things considered, but be socially liberal on policy stuff. Now, all of a sudden, he says, I got to clean up my act here if I want a good 2020.
and he got to say, I work in a bipartisan fashion. They got an assembly that's Democrat, Republicans in the Senate. It's bipartisan. Now he has to say, I'm for the party if he wants the Democratic
We don't learn
nomination.
anything about Trump tonight with what happens, right?
I mean, if it's a much bigger than expected win for mayor, I think that's a pretty good indication that.
But then again, the special elections usually are light turnout, but when you spend $3 million on getting every prime voter, that's those who vote in primaries and general elections out, it's a little different. You're going to have higher
I will tell
expected
you,
turnout.
tomorrow, Andrew will have the results later on, 9 o'clock when the polls close. We'll have special coverage on Fox. Tomorrow on RFL, we'll have this. There's also other special elections, not just in our neck of the woods. Arizona, I think, will be fascinating, a special race there. If somehow the Republicans lose that seat, I think that canary in the coal mine becomes a much louder noise here as to what could happen in the fall. All right, coming up next, instead of draining the swamp, it is teeming. We're going to show you how President Trump's cabinet is filled with people who want to gut their agencies but still spend money, your taxpayer money, on unbelievable luxuries and always seemingly on themselves.